Well, our next guest is the CEO of the premier mobile gaming company in the United States, FanDuel. They power real-time experiences for millions of fans across sportsbook, casino, racing, and daily fantasy platforms. So please join us in welcoming Amy Howe, CEO of FanDuel.
Amy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Likewise, you have a pretty incredible partnership with the NFL that is very deeply integrated now and didn't exist 5 years ago.
That's right. It didn't exist 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we thought
your industry didn't exist 5 years ago.
This is a room full of executives, some that do partner with the NFL in various ways, and a lot of people that don't. And we wanted to sort of ask an open-ended question. What does it look like to partner with the NFL? What is the anatomy of an NFL partnership?
Well, it was actually my first act as CEO. I remember one of my very first conversations was with Reedy Anderson, who has been a phenomenal partner. And it was, the reason we partner with the leagues in general, right, NFL in particular, is to make sure that we're operating within a legal, safe, and transparent ecosystem, right? And as the leading sports book, that's something that we take very seriously. So when you see an advertisement during an NFL game, you know that it is a legitimate regulated operator, not somebody that's operating offshore. And it's really been a phenomenal partnership. I mean, if I think about what we've done over the years, we have, the advertising has been really critical for us to bring, think about why do you advertise? We're trying to bring consumers over from either from the black market, right, when a state opens up, or you've got lots of consumers who have never engaged in sports betting before. So a lot of them come in for the Super Bowl because they're, fun, casual bettors, and it's a great way to bring people on to a legal platform. But when you are advertising, you're authentically reaching those customers. But one of the things that the NFL, I think, has done a really remarkable job on is working with us to manage the integrity of the sport, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been a lot of publicity around that, and years ago, we sat down with the league and we talked about some of the markets that could be potentially manipulated by a single player, right? Missed field goals or first penalty of the game, and we agreed that we weren't going to take those.
Which is actually there's much less opportunity in football than there are in other sports for an individual player to have control over the game.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So it's been a remarkable partnership. I feel like we have kind of helped this industry grow up, and there's a lot of skeptics out there. There always will be, but when you hear about some of these stories that are well publicized, this is exactly why you want to legalize sports betting, right? There's still these numbers are always staggering to me, but $675 billion black market, right? Where consumers either are using bookies or...
Wow, still. Wow.
And it's still growing. And we're sitting here in California, and sports betting isn't legal yet. So if you look at our industry-leading product that you have in 50% of the U.S., you can't access it yet in California. We're doing the hard work to try to open it up, but you can't access it yet.
Contextualize the $675 billion against the regulated U.S. total handle.
The 675 is bigger than the regulated by a pretty wide margin.
So still.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah,
wow.
That's a big part of what we do is, we work with other regulated operators as called the Sports Betting Alliance, and so it's FanDuel and DraftKings and Fanatics and many of the other operators. We compete with them, but we also have to collaborate to safely open up the markets, right? And listen, I'm a mom of 3 teenage boys, and a big part of what we do as a regulated operator is to make sure we protect consumers, right? There's significant safeguards that we have in place as a company. We spend, at the Flutter level, our parent company, we spend over $100 million a year on responsible gaming tools and awareness and education. And I'd challenge you to go to the App Store and find any other app that actually tries to you can limit the amount of time you spend on the app. I wish they would do that for my teenage boys for social digital platforms, but all kidding aside, those are the tools we're putting in place, right? You can set limits on the deposits, the losses, the amount of time you're spending, and that's important, right? Because we talk about as a consumer and a fan, we want you to play with a plan, and we want you to be intentional, and it should be a form of entertainment.
Yeah, let's talk about that. It must be.
Can I just say what you said in the car on the way over?
Yeah.
You're like, they have sort of an interesting business problem because they want you to use their app. They want you to play the game.
Yeah.
But they don't want you to use it too much because then it's bad for you. Like, that must be a hard job managing, okay, we generate revenue when people play, but we hope they don't play too much. How do you balance that?
It is a hard job, and as you can imagine, we have a lot of different types of customers on our platform. The vast majority of them are casual users, right? I mean, we have millions and millions of users, especially for Super Bowl Sunday, that are showing up and betting, and the average bet might be 25. Average prop bet is call it $15, $20. So. It starts with, I talk about this all the time, that your values show up in all of your decisions. It shows up in your product. It shows up in how you onboard and bring customers onto the platform. It shows up in how you incent your employees and, the tone from the top. So it's, it's a really important balance that you have to get right. Obviously, it's a very competitive market, and we're going up against not just regulated operators, but now a whole new category of prediction market players. And so at the end of the day, we're a very, we talk about our organization as we're a humble and hungry company. Even though we've been number one, we know we need to keep earning the right to do that. But at the same time, we're building a long-term sustainable business, right? And so if we're making the wrong short-term trade-offs at the expense of a longer-term viable business that's right for the customer.
I mean, at the end of the day, trust is the most important thing, right? Trust with the leagues,
right.
Trust with the customers, trust with the regulators.
And it goes back to the partnership with the NFL and all the partners we have. I think one of the hallmarks of our success has been when you partner with FanDuel, you're partnering with a high-integrity team, and we're going to make the right decisions.
One area of your operations that I find from the outside must completely fascinating is data. Before integration and regulated betting became a thing, real-time data obviously was important to leagues for various reasons, but now it's like really, really, really important.
Yeah.
And the broadcasts are typically what, a 7-second delay-ish, call it?
It's coming down.
Coming down, okay,
Coming
but still,
down, but
when you're
latency,
when you're talking about betting
Yeah.
markets, that's you can't have that.
No, you're right. By the way, if you really like data, you should come to one of our offices and watch our risk and trading organization trade a NFL or an NBA game. It's fascinating.
So you have live traders on the floor trading.
Yeah. We have
live.
Hundreds of traders around the world.
What does that mean?
So we have a risk and trading organization. They're building very sophisticated models to determine where to set the lines, right? They're pricing. We have, for Super Bowl, we'll have 700 pre-live markets, and so there's, a price or odds associated with each of those. So they're taking in tremendous amounts of data, and to your point on live data, right? Once the game starts, we have, there's an unbelievable assortment of live offers. So you can drive by drive, you can be betting on who's going to catch the next pass or who's going to make the next touchdown. And you're taking, we're using official league data, but you're taking that data in. The traders have to, ingest that into their models and push it back into the app, all seamless with no latency.
So when they're trading, they're watching bets come in and they're moving lines based on.
You should see the number of screens that they're looking at.
Do you have people live at games physically there, or are you getting like real speed data?
No,
data
this
pipelines?
is all data that's being ingested, but all of it's coming in real time. And
I mean, I'm
so
just
it's
imagining an NFL
fascinating.
Sunday where you've got 8 games going on simultaneously, setting these odds. Yeah.
No, it's that's really the special sauce, and one of the things that FanDuel did early on is we brought all of that in-house. So we have our risk and trading organization, and we had the good fortune of bringing a lot of that over from our parent company. So we're owned by Flutter Entertainment, and sports betting has been legal for decades in the United Kingdom and Ireland and Australia. So we brought a lot of those, the talent and the technology over from I think 2019 was the first official, NFL Super Bowl, and so we were doing all that in-house.
So what data, I'm trying to work out what data do you end up knowing that if not for the FanDuels of the world, then the leagues and the teams wouldn't know? Like, what's the net new data that's created where
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
mean, you have so
we,
much
we
more
can tell them
fan
something.
engagement data.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if the amount of data that you're taking in is remarkable. You're obviously looking at tons of player stats, and you're looking at injuries and significant amount of data. But you'd be surprised that there's also a fair bit of judgment that goes on top of that as well, weather patterns, and so the data sets are constantly changing and getting more and more sophisticated. But it's, you may be getting at the question, well, can AI, if you're an average user, can AI actually outsmart the risk and trading organization?
If they have all the data that the risk and
If
trading
they have all the
has.
data, and that's the issue, right? I mean, there's, because of the way these models are built and the historical data we have, the amount of data that we're ingesting, it'd be very difficult for somebody from the outside. Where AI can be very beneficial, and this is actually one of the products that we built into the app, it's a product called ACE AI, and it's effectively a betting companion. So consumers used to leave the app and do all their research on player stats and odds, and then come back in and construct their 10-leg parlay. You can do all of that now within ACE AI, within the app, and seamlessly place your bet. So it helps facilitate it kind of saves time, but we don't think it gives you a mathematical edge.
Even beyond the betting, though, you get data on what parts of the game fans are engaging with, right? More than other parts, right? Like,
Yeah.
Are the leagues interested in that data? I got to imagine so. I mean, like before you, there was no way for the NFL to get a sense of are fans directly engaging with runner pass plays more, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we'll sit down with Roger and Reedy and the team at the end of every season, and we'll go through a pretty comprehensive overview of what we saw, and we'll force rank and show you who the most popular player props were, and which matchups were most compelling, and they're using some of that data as an input, for instance, in terms of how they think about matchups and broadcasts and whatnot. So it's incredibly compelling. We're really sitting on a gold mine of data, and I think what's so powerful about sports betting is everybody they have the player narratives, right? This started in the very early daily fantasy sports days. I mean, I have 3 teenage boys, and every Sunday they're on YouTube watching their Sunday Ticket, and they have 4 screens up at once because they're following all their players. Meanwhile, I'm like, just put the Buffalo Bills on so I can watch my team. But people now have everybody knows everything about these players, and that's what makes it makes the live sports event so much more exciting and engaging.
Can I ask, is anything surprising when you go and you make those presentations back to the league or any other sport, and you say, here's some interesting things we learned around parts of the game that were more engaging than we thought or less engaging than we thought? Any anecdotes that you have around something you saw in the data that was unexpected?
I think you'd be surprised. Well, the player props are always... those are some of the most important, popular bets. If you looked at what we would consider to be the core markets, so the money line, the over/under, those tend to be, call it, 40%, whereas the props are going to be closer to 60%. So it just gives you a sense of just how much engagement is. Player props in some ways are a way for the sports fan to express what they think or what they want to happen, right? Everybody has their favorite players. And the ability to construct a parlay with lots of different player props is fun, right? Because you almost have this side game where even if the game's a blowout, you get to see are all 10 legs in my parlay going to hit? So it's fun.
I mean, this is fascinating thinking about naively again use that example in the past. If you're an NFL team and you're not having a great season, fan engagement perhaps might go down, attendance might go down, viewership might go down. That's going to be bad for your sponsorship, so all sorts of reasons. But now you might have a couple star players or a couple fan favorite players.
Yeah.
And are teams leaning into this?
Yeah,
with how they market
absolutely.
their players, how they feature them?
We have partnerships. Obviously, we have league partnerships, but we also have partnerships with the teams. And that's, as you might suspect, we have a partnership with the Buffalo Bills. But it allows us to reach a local consumer in a really authentic way, right? So we're obviously doing things at the local level. But if you think about the role of technology now and the ability to, I heard Neil was talking about the single screen experience. you're going from my kids now, or they do have their phones and they have they're tracking their players and they're watching the game, but you now have the ability to watch and bet, right? So the NFL has that. We just this year actually kicked off a partnership with Amazon Prime for NBA, and so you can link your Amazon Prime account with your FanDuel account, and you can actually see your bets.
Yeah, this is
in
pretty
real
wild.
time.
So when you're watching the NBA on Amazon,
Yep.
your bets are getting overlaid as graphics on
That's
top of the
exactly
game.
right. So you know exactly how your bets are doing as the
Yeah.
game progresses, which is pretty cool.
That's very cool.
So a thing that I think, as I was reading up on this, that I think most people have no idea about is the world of sports integrity, data and sports
Yeah.
integrity. If you're a league and you're not working with a company like FanDuel, you actually don't have access to, is someone fixing this game? You can kind of eyeball it and go, that seemed like that should have been a catch. Or that seemed like that player stepped out of bounds intentionally. That seemed like, but you don't have data to back it up. What is the way that the whole sports integrity side of the organization works and gives data to the league to be informed on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you are a regulated operator like FanDuel, you're working within a whole ecosystem. So we have independent integrity monitoring services, the data providers. So most of the leagues will have official data providers that they work with. So we're working with the data providers. We're working with many times our competitors, and if law enforcement needs to get involved. But what will happen? I'll use the Terry Rozier example, right, with the NBA.
Yeah.
We identified nefarious behavior on the platform 5 hours before that game tipped.
Like too much money going into
Yeah,
one
there was too much
unlikely
money
event.
going on a particular player prop on the under. And so we have 24/7, our risk and trading organization is operating 24/7. So you're monitoring this, and they're using sophisticated data models to identify that. Once they identify something that they think is a bad actor, then we will immediately notify the league, the team, and in that particular instance, we shut the markets down 5 hours before the game started.
So you before the act is even committed.
That's exactly right. And that activity, it's so funny because there's so many skeptics about betting in general, and these incidents will be publicized, and then people will say, well, that's why sports betting shouldn't be legalized. And you said, no, that's exactly why it should, right? Because if that behavior happens all the time.
Yeah, this stuff
in the black market, right? We just
not
don't
new.
know
This
about it.
behavior has been happening.
So the way the ecosystem works is we're able to identify it, catch it, and then we work with law enforcement when we need to as well. So we're handing all of that data over to the necessary parties, and these things obviously it doesn't play out overnight, but in just about every case that has been widely publicized, it was actually caught on FanDuel and other operators, but we caught the behavior. If you're doing that underground, that never sees the light of day.
Wow. One thing, learning a bit about FanDuel for today, that surprised me was the breadth of products that you all have and the breadth of markets that you are in.
Not just daily fantasy anymore,
not just
obviously.
daily fantasy. Yeah. Maybe tell us today, what does the sort of portfolio of FanDuel look like?
Yeah, so as you just said, the original product was daily fantasy sports, right? That's where FanDuel came from. We have the premier racing product, so you can engage and bet on the Kentucky Derby or the Breeders' Cup. That's live in about 43 different states. The core product, of course, is legalized sports betting. That's live in about 50% of states in the U.S., and we're still doing the hard work to legalize and get the remaining states online. And then we have an iGaming. We're number one in iGaming as well. So
What is iGaming?
You can play slots and table games on your phone. And that's been an interesting journey because historically, FanDuel was all sports DNA. So years ago, we were probably number 3 or number 4 in iGaming, and we brought a phenomenal team over from Flutter. But that's only live in, call it 10% of the U.S. And then of course we just launched our FanDuel Predicts product in the prediction market space, and that's the core Predicts product is live in all 50 states, but for the sports future contracts, you can only access those in states that aren't legal. So we made a very clear divide. They're different products. We want our industry-leading sports betting product in all states. And so in the states that are legal, that will remain the product. In states that aren't legal, we have the Predicts product. But once, for instance, California were to legalize, we'd flip over to our legalized.
Yeah.
Because the assortment is phenomenal, right? And
Well, talk to us about, your industry has had this massive change, new sub-industry entrant over the last couple of years in prediction markets. From your perspective,
just because it's named something different, is it actually a different thing?
Yeah, what is this? What is happening?
By the way,
is it actually different?
To put a finer point on the change, a year ago, you would not have been asking me about prediction markets. Right. It was not on my roadmap. I had not done a partnership with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, so it gives you a sense of just how dynamic and how quickly things are changing. But simply put, prediction markets have been around for forever, right? I mean, you can buy or sell a contract on where the S&P 500 is going to close or the price of gold. You can, for presidential elections or cultural events like the Grammys or the Oscars, you can buy and sell contracts. So the price of the contract between 0 and 99 cents is effectively, if you're buying a contract for the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl at 65 cents, that means there's a 65% probability. And the difference is it's regulated by the federal government, by the CFTC, whereas our core sports betting product is legalized at the state level.
And does it fall under the same regulatory framework as any kind of options and futures trading?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is regulated by the CFTC. And this is the first year that the CFTC effectively allowed sports future contracts. And we had to make a very calculated decision. Do we enter that space or not? And at the end of the day, we're very carefully and thoughtfully threading the needle because we have phenomenal relationships with the state regulators, and that remains the North Star. But while we have states like California that may take a few years to open up, this gives us a safe and legal product to start to engage with those consumers in advance of that happening.
How does this patchwork work? How do the state regulators who have said sports betting is illegal in our state feel about the CFTC saying, well, federally, you can do prediction market bets on sports?
That is a great question. We're hoping that all kidding aside, one of the big differences in addition to the breadth of assortment is with prediction markets, the states aren't generating the tax revenue, right? So, FanDuel's generated over $6 billion in revenue that has gone to the states since we opened up in 2018, and those are going to great causes, right? With prediction markets, you're not generating state revenue. So, remains to be seen. We'll see how it plays out in the legislative cycles in 26 and beyond, but it could potentially provide an impetus for the states that aren't legal to legalize sports betting. We just did a tax foundation study and estimate that there's easily 1.6, well over $2 billion in tax revenue that the states aren't getting because they haven't legalized.
It's interesting hearing about all these different products and making them for this state with this regulatory regime. I've mostly worked in unregulated industries. I've built software.
Good for you. It's a lot easier.
Yeah. Can you talk to me about the product organization and the way it would need to run differently when you're in such a heavily regulated geographic patchwork?
Yeah, we're effectively like a bank or a financial institution, right? The rigor that is required, and it's state by state, but there's a core set for every single consumer on our platform, and you have to be 21. You're going through what we call a know your customer process, right? So you have to verify that you are who you say you are, name, social security, you have to provide bank accounts, proof of address. So it's a very, very rigorous process to even sign up. So there's real friction, right, to be able to do that. And obviously on the black market, there is no friction and there's plenty of underage gambling. As an executive, I have to be licensed in every state that we operate in. We work very closely with every single state regulator. So we have 25 regulators right now that we're working with. And every market that we offer has to be approved by a regulator. We can't just decide I'll give you a good example since we're here at Super Bowl. The coin toss has only been approved by, I forget how many regulators, but you can't bet on the coin toss in every state because some regulators say that, no, that's not a proper betting market.
So as you guys are developing products, you have a product idea, the product organization works on it, builds it. You then have to go out to each regulator and say,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we can't just drum up. And so funny, because you always get lots of folks from the outside who have, I have a great idea for a betting market, and you're like, that's great, that's never going to make it through a regulator.
It's interesting. You probably have a better spidey sense than anyone of what can actually come to market in different jurisdictions.
Yeah, very much so. And it's one of the things that's the dynamic that is interesting right now is we, as the industry leader, we're excited to work alongside as I said, the prediction markets are they're regulated by the CFTC. We think we can bring a lot of the learnings, not just around responsible gaming and consumer safeguards, but also around how you manage the integrity of the sport into that market, right? You don't want the Wild West, right? It's really important to have a set of guardrails that all operators adhere to because this thing can get out of control.
Maybe taking a step back, I will say when I don't know if it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I first started seeing FanDuel logo on screen on major broadcasts from leagues like the NFL. Maybe it's even more recent. I remember being shocked. Like announcers didn't even used to say the word spread on air. I mean, it was so taboo, and that was didn't exist at all 5 years ago. If I'm a team owner or an executive and I'm thinking about the long future of the league, 30, 40 years down the line, what's your guidance on the right level of betting to have as a part of the game? Because 0 is too little, because then everyone's just unregulated, and you're missing out on revenue opportunities. The game's not engaging enough. You're missing an opportunity. 100 is too much, because you don't want gambling logos all over the screen during games. And what's the right amount?
Well, I think there's a couple different levels to that. So in advertising, we actually work very closely with the NFL. There's limits in terms of the number of ads, the type of ads. There's very clear governance, right? We have, our advertisement for the Super Bowl is, it's called Last Call for Football. For the 49ers fans, Joe Montana will be in it. You should watch it before the game kicks off. And it's about, celebrating the highs of the season.
You mean
but
Joe
also,
Montana, the celebrated venture capitalist?
He's last call for
Hall of Fame
football,
in 2
because
careers.
next Sunday it's going to be dark and it'll be a depressing day in my household because my kids will be very sad for the next. But there's clear governance, right? And again, that's part of being an official partner with the NFL. Then the question is around integrations, right? That's also something that there's a whole set of governance between the league and the media partners. And ultimately, as you think about where technology will continue to go, I use the example of Amazon Prime. If you don't want to see any integrations, you can shut them off, right? And the ability now to personalize, obviously with the Amazon Prime example, you have to consciously link your accounts in order to see that bet tracking. But I think over time as data gets more sophisticated, we become more and more personalized.
Yeah, fans will be able to dial in.
Yeah, you can dial it in or out, and if you have young kids at home and you don't want to expose them to sports betting, you can shut it off.
That's actually a great transition to sort of our last topic for you. You have a unique purview over the fan experience for sports in your career because you were the president of Ticketmaster before coming
During
to FanDuel.
COVID, by the way, that was fun.
Oh, wow. Wow.
When the whole world shut down.
Yeah. What, just broadly, where do you see fan experience going? Physical, digital, when we're reconvening here for the Innovation Summit at Super Bowl 70, what is the fan experience going to be like?
Yeah, it's a great question because I actually oversaw the digital transformation of the ticketing industry. Right? Remember when you used to use your hard stock PDF tickets?
Print them out.
I remember season ticket holders used to be really mad when you took the hard stock tickets away. But now, everything is on your phone, right? Your phone is your ticket and your ability to get, to get into the venue. You don't need to use. You don't need to use cash anymore. If I think about the future of online gaming, I think it is going to, we talk about your game, your way. It's going to be, we'll see. And we are at the point now, based on the way we're rebuilding models, where we can enable literally an infinite assortment, but our ability to customize it and know what you want to bet on, what kind of user interface do you want to have, make it simple, intuitive, and highly personalized is where that world is going. And you imagine connecting the entire digital ecosystem as you think about the fan journey. And it's really powerful. So I think we're just getting started, and the role that emerging technology and AI and Gen AI will play in that, I think, is the sky's the limit on that.
Great. Well, Amy, thank you so much. That is
Thank
a great
you.
place to leave it.
Appreciate it.